The air is so cold that I don't think you need a ton of lift to create some really fluffy, light snow maybe back to the west, which in that case, it would be light. It wouldn't be a ton, but because of the cold air in place, it might be more impactful than you think for just a few flurries here and there because the ground's going to be cold. So I think it's an interesting storm, but right now I like dealing with these type of setups much better than last weekend, to be honest with you, because this is the kind of event where this could be kind of fun and not a big a deal, and we're not talking massive power outages, which I'll go back to this past weekend. That was the worst part about the whole setup.
That should be off the table. Natural disaster should be off the table.
Yep.
Now, it could still be a big mess for somebody. If these things really crank up, somebody can get high totals. But we just don't know. So what's the sense in stressing over that on a Monday? That's what Wednesday and Thursday are for, when we're preparing a little bit more. But as of right now, I'm not super worried about that.
Yeah, and so the Weather Prediction Center has us in the 10 to 30% chance of wintry precip this weekend, which seems about right to me. This map hasn't updated, but if I were to redraw it, the whole state of North and South Carolina is in that light green, basically, with a very small section in eastern North Carolina, 30 to 50. So that kind of shows you kind of the general area. It's probably going to be more east, and we'll watch the trends on this. But Tim, before we go, we're almost out of time. This will obviously be the talk probably every day this week. But let's also talk about the cold air, because tonight's brutally cold. But I'm actually interested in your thoughts on this, because I think this week could be interesting for pipes, because one of the things in my experience, duration of cold tends to lead to pipe issues versus short blast. And with the prolonged cold snap this week, I do wonder if more and more people might develop pipe issues as we get later in the week.
That's a good point. Yeah. So most mornings, this will be the worst one tonight into tomorrow morning. But even after that, I have us in the teens basically every day through the next week. It's not going to be warm up at all. So do you have any tips for keeping those pipes safe the best, easiest way?
I just think, see how cold that water is coming out of the tap. I think that's going to tell you a lot about how cold it's getting. I just remember this, and this is my personal experience, because we had a stretch like this in 2010-11. It was like a week where I think the highs were in the 30s, the lows were like this. And we didn't have our house. Thank goodness our house was fine. But the line between the house and the meter did break in the yard, and that was a mess. So you might be shocked. You might do everything right inside your house, and then something going out to the main water line breaks, which is something that happened to me. So be safe out there. We're starting to see some of these issues develop. It will be a long week, and we'll have you covered. Stick around. We're going to have more news coming up after the break.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being with us here on Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. We'll be together for the next couple of hours, taking a look at your big breaking headlines and live news feeds from around the Charlotte area and beyond. We are talking about a brand new update we just got this week. Kind of look beyond at this point, going to the West Coast, Portland, Oregon. There was an officer-involved shooting, and we just got an update from authorities out there. The person just caught after nearly a week out there. Apparently this shooting injured 2 officers pretty seriously. Let's listen in.
And really working the tip as it led them based on what they learned. So it was a little bit of a call back to getting out and following it and doing the work and talking to the people.
So was that tip like we saw him in that area, or was it like, oh, I know who that is, this is his name?
The tip was in general that somebody that is associated with that area believed that they had seen a person that could be consistent with the photos released immediately after that incident. And so from there we were able to build on that to lead us where we were.
Were you able to confirm if that was because there's a business in Park and Fly, and they told me that there was a person who had been vandalizing their business, threatening their employees, and the picture they showed me looked very similar? Are you able to dive into whether that there is a connection between that vandal and this person being arrested?
So this is open, ongoing, and DA Vasquez mentioned the process where we do still need to get through grand jury. I'm not going to get into those specifics, but again, people associated with that area were the people that called and began that process.
Do you know if this person was houseless, or if they were, do you know kind of the status on that part?
I think it's too early to say or add a label. I do know, and I'm comfortable saying they are from Portland.
It was mentioned, Joey Baca with Coin 6, that he was taken into custody without incident, but I guess could you go into more detail about what that process was like, taking him into custody when that operation started, what happened?
Rob, do you have more details on that? I got some today.
Yeah, absolutely. As we mentioned, we're partnering with the U.S. Marshal Service on this case. Once the suspect had been identified and we had obtained a warrant, we solicited the assistance for them to work a fugitive case. That is what they do. They're professionals at it, as we are, but this is what they specialize in. So in the partnership with them, and once a location was identified, they full circle turned back to us and requested assistance from the Special Emergency Reaction Team and the Crisis Negotiation Team from the Portland Police Bureau. That planning took several hours. A detailed and thoughtful plan was put into place, and then CERT and CNT then kind of took over that final piece of that custody from the U.S. Marshal Service, utilizing some additional tools at their disposal.
Coming down on KXL, about how long did the whole takedown take? I mean, from the time that you identified where he was until the time that you arrested him, was it a long negotiation period, or?
Specifically, any negotiation period, I would say, we worked this problem now for many days. I think once our CERT and CNT made contact with Mr. Olkers, it was a couple. I'd have to look. I think it was over an hour. But again, that was being methodical, thoughtful, and slow about that work. As part of my role, I'm actually a sergeant on our crisis negotiation team and work with CERT, and using the thoughtful for way they do things. There's no reason to rush into anything. Everything was done with ultimate safety in mind.
At what point did you identify Olkers as a suspect?
The question for you was what point we had identified Olkers as a suspect. It was over the course of the last about 48 hours. Again, won't get into all our specifics, but that was based on a number of different things, not just one specific lead. It was a accumulation of several different items of work.
Christine, do you have another question?
Yes, I do. With the incident where he was allegedly threatening with a knife, are there going to be charges in that, and was there a motive established on that one? And then can you elaborate on the conversation with officers who are in contact with him?
So to answer your first question about the initial confrontation, again, we are now early on into this next phase of this investigation. Obviously, our focus has been primarily on finding Mr. Olkers and safely bringing him into custody. So we will continue to work through that other part. So I couldn't give you a straight answer on a yes or no, but obviously we continue to work this investigation to its fullest. And then I'd have to ask for the second part again.
Oh yeah, when the officers were talking to him and they approached him, what was that conversation? What was going on there?
You know, I'm not going to get into a ton of details. There obviously was a call for service. We discussed it, I think, on Thursday when we spoke, that we don't believe that was some sort of ambush. There was a call for service from a community member that led them there. Again, it was some sort of threat.
Joey, a couple more questions, then we got to...
Yeah, the place that he was arrested, not particularly close to the place that he shot these officers. Do you have any idea how he got to that part of town and what he was doing this last week? Did he drive? Did he have a car? Any ideas?
I think that's kind of a detailed question. We do. It's not something we're really comfortable sharing. We have an idea, but again, without articulable facts and evidence to support it, I wouldn't give you a ton of good to give you an answer that we couldn't necessarily support.
Celine and then Christine will call.
Was he armed during the arrest? And depending on that answer, where specifically was his firearm found, and also was the knife ever found?
So we did recover a firearm from the area he was taken into custody from. Past that, I was out at the scene and then have came back here and been prepping. So I couldn't give much more detail than that. And then on the knife, we can get back to you and detail that and have Mike follow up.
We don't know if it was physically on his body when he was arrested or just in that area.
I'd have to look, so I couldn't give you a good answer.
This might be a question for the DA, but these charges for alleged bank robbery date back to 2022. People are going to want to know, why was this guy on the loose when he had charges for bank robbery in 2022? The PC statement in those charges mentioned that he may have had a gun on him, and it seems like he would have been a risk to the public, and why was he on the loose?
Yeah, and I can tell you my office charged him with a crime, and he was in warrant status. So it's something that we wanted to see prosecuted, and so it'll be an issue of we are one part in the process. The court makes decisions about who remains out of custody and in custody, but I can tell you that under my administration, we've been very clear. We are demanding that people be held in custody when they are a risk to the public. So certainly it's one where we had major charges on him, and we will be pursuing those as we go forward, as well as making sure that when he comes before the court on this matter, we will be requesting that he be held without bail.
Mike, could you answer the question regarding the story? I'm sorry.
On this morning's homicide?
Yes, and then that goes another question.
Sure, yeah, since Chief is here, I'll just give a brief synopsis of this morning. Obviously, and unfortunately, we had our first homicide of 2026 this morning. I can tell you around 2:30 a.m., there was a medical call, someone in distress in the area of Southeast 134th and Herald. When paramedics arrived, they noticed that this individual was not just in distress, but he had been shot. So officers also responded to the scene and cordoned off the area, and that individual unfortunately passed away despite life-saving efforts by paramedics on scene. Our homicide unit, folks who were, still working this other case, responded to that scene and launched an investigation. And in the coming days, we anticipate identifying the individual who is deceased. And as always, anyone with information about that case should contact homicide tips at police.portlandoregon.gov. And we'll take one final question from Christine, then we have to let these individuals get on with their day.
I'm going to read it off. This is not my question. President Trump is demanding that local law enforcement assist federal law enforcement in detaining undocumented people who are wanted for crimes. What is your reaction to these demands given Portland's sanctuary status?
Yeah, our position isn't going to change. We're going to be consistent like we have been. We are not engaged in immigration enforcement. Have not been since the state law was passed, I think, in 1987. We're not going to change now. We're going to continue to adhere to the rule of law. We're going to continue to adhere to the desires of Oregonians and what their wishes are, and continuing to police Portlanders in the manner in which they're asking to be policed. So nothing's going to change on our end in that regard.
Sorry, Mayor Wilson, do you have an answer for that as well?
I'll just
Thanks
say,
so much for
No trouble. Just second what the chief noted. We're a sanctuary state. We're a sanctuary city, and council just reaffirmed through Protect Portland that we're committed to being a sanctuary city, and so we will continue to hold up the values of our community.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to all our speakers. I just want to follow up and close the loop on Celine's question. The firearm was not located on Mr. Olkers. It was located in the area that he was taken into custody. Lastly, again, a big thanks to the community and a thanks to all of you in the room, because we are not standing here today without you all helping us get this information out, get those pictures out, and that leads to those tips from the community. So really appreciate all of you. Thank you for being here today, and have a good rest of your day. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, folks, there you have it. Latest update out of Portland, Oregon, as a suspect in a shooting involving at least 2 seriously injured officers has been caught. We will update you as we learn more. We do have a quick break to take. We'll be back on the other side with Live Impact News. All right, folks, back here in the Live Impact News studio, we just heard from attorneys for Olympic snowboarder Ryan Wedding. He is the former Canadian Olympic snowboarder who's accused of running a drug cartel. He has pleaded not guilty after a recent arrest, not guilty to 17 felony charges, and he did have his first court hearing. Let's listen in to what his legal defense says.
Combination of conditions could be set to secure bond was not something that we were prepared to argue this afternoon. We wanted more time, and so that was not discussed today. But it's likely to be something that would be addressed at a later date to the district court in Los Angeles that the case is assigned to.
Two dates were given.
Can you talk a little bit about the 2 years you mentioned today in court?
Hold on, let me address that real quick. There were 2 dates set. One was a trial date. The first was a status date. Okay. Given the nature of this case, given what I anticipate to be voluminous evidence, I doubt that we are going to be going to trial in March. Typically, it would take time to process, review, and prepare a defense in this particular case, and so we put that over to the status hearing so that we could probably pick a new trial date.
What are your early impressions of what he's accused of?
I'm sorry?
What are your early impressions of what he's accused of?
Well, you can read the indictments the indictments speak for themselves.
Mr. Colombo, Wedding is facing multiple accusations that he was orchestrating murders in Ontario and in Colombia. How do you respond to those allegations?
Well, you heard him say not guilty, right? So that's how I would respond.
Where is he being held?
That's something that you could direct your questions to the Department of Justice and the U.S. Marshals.
Can you go into the fears you had for his family? You mentioned you were afraid for his family, or he is afraid for his family. Can you?
I did not say I was afraid for his family. What I said is that his family is entitled to privacy, as is anyone who's going to act as a surety for the bond. And so what I advised the court was I anticipate, in terms of a surety, if we have a surety to post to have him released on bond, that information, their personal information, would be filed under seal. So in terms of that, I did not say what you said. Okay?
In terms of apprehension, you said that's the government, but you've challenged the narrative that they have given him. Just can you give us anything more about how he was actually brought in and if there was any negotiation beforehand?
Again, I mean, an apprehension is an apprehension, right? So, no, in terms of any details, the head of the FBI, I believe, already had a press conference. You've heard his characterizations in terms of the apprehension, and so I'm not in a position to provide any more information with regard to that, but I can tell you and confirm that he was arrested, he was apprehended, he did not surrender.
The FBI has said that your client was hiding out in Mexico for over 10 years. What's your response to that? Who says if I would be hiding out?
Well, I don't know that's the case. Hiding out and living somewhere are two different things. And so I would characterize it as living. The government can characterize it their way, and hence, why we have these judicial proceedings to determine ultimately how things turn out and whose interpretation of the facts is correct, and whether the government can prove their case, and each and every element of the charges that they've filed against Mr. Wedding with proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
There are outstanding charges in Canada dating back from 2015 by the
I'm not going to take any questions about anything in Canada because I'm not in a position to answer those. I'm not a Canadian lawyer. Any other questions?
Sorry, I might have missed this. Why did you waive the detention hearing instead of arguing for bail or for detention hearing?
Well, as I explained, I mean, imagine the whirlwind that he's experienced since his apprehension. It takes time to put the sureties in place, to have the information for the court, to establish that there is a condition or combination of conditions that could secure his release. So we were not in a position today to do that, and we anticipate addressing that a little later before the district court.
Do you know why it was moved here today to Orange County?
I do, actually. It's a good question. It was originally scheduled for LA, but because of the protests against ICE, which are daily and ongoing outside of the courthouse in downtown Los Angeles, they decided to move it here.
So he's being held in the Santa Ana jail. We noticed his jail garb said SAJ, Santa Ana jail.
Yeah, yes, you saw his jumpsuit, yeah. No, I'm not going to provide any information on that today. When did I first meet him? Several days ago, upon his arrival in the United States.
Considering all the discovery, if you had the best guess on when the trial might start?
I'm sorry?
I know you said it's not going to be March 24th, but considering all the discovery you still need to review, if you had to guess, what do you think would be the earliest the trial date?
I don't know. I think other counsel have indicated maybe October, but I can't say. I'm not in a position to tell you that. I mean, sometimes cases go quickly, but one of this magnitude is likely to be set, sometime in the future.
Okay. Do you have any fears of your client's safety while in detention?
No.
What's your response to the FBI director comparing him and saying that he's a modern day El Chapo or modern day Pablo Escobar?
I think it's overstated. That's their spin. Yeah.
And because he was transferred from Mexico to here, does that mean that the death penalty is off the table in this case?
It was an apprehension. And so in order for that to be taken off the table, you would have had to have required an extradition, and that's not how it happened. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Can you spell your last name, please?
Sure. C-O-L
All right, once again, that is the attorney for Ryan Wedding, who is the former Canadian Olympic snowboarder who is accused of being the head of a billion-dollar drug trafficking organization, accused of ordering the murder of somebody and of multiple killings of other people. Authorities say that he was caught after being in hiding for more than a decade. More in this case to come, and more here on Live Impact in just a couple of minutes. We'll be back in 2. Welcome back here to Live Impact News. Of course, we do continue to follow the latest out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. The big uproar that we see from protesters there tonight following this past weekend shooting of ICU nurse Alex Preddy. Now, tonight we did hear, according to NBC News reporting tonight, it sounds like Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino, as well as some agents, have plans to leave Minneapolis, and Border Czar Tom Homan is set to be the main contact on the ground. That's according to the White House. Meantime, as we mentioned, we continue to see folks who are speaking out against this recent shooting, as well as the ICE operations that remain underway in the Twin Cities area. Hearing from University of Minnesota students today, want to share some of their address with reporters.
And in our city. And I want to speak personally. I came to this country legally. When I was 3 months old, I was sponsored by a Lutheran church here that I'm deeply indebted to and grateful to. One of the reasons why I'm a divinity student here today. And I still walk around with my passport. I have it right in my left pocket right here. Not because I've done anything wrong, because I'm just black enough, I'm just brown enough, and I look just foreign enough to wonder how I will be seen as a threat when I enter a room. And that is a feeling many people in the city are living with right now. I saw a post this week that asked a simple question. People keep asking, what was he doing at the scene? Referring to the late Alex Preddy. And the answer was, the scene is our homes. The scene is our neighborhoods. The scene is our businesses. Are we not supposed to live? Because this did not happen in some distant place. It happened where people raise their children, where they go to work, where they pray, and where they live ordinary lives. Our eyes do not lie about what people experience in moments like this. People in this community say they witnessed Alex Preddy lose his life in front of them, just as this city and this country have witnessed the deaths of Renee Good, of George Floyd, of Oscar Grant, and of Breonna Taylor. Different cities, different moments, And the same question that keeps coming back, who is accountable when life is taken? In a public interview after the shooting, Border Patrol Chief Greg Bravino was asked whether his comments sounded like he was blaming the victim. According to the interview, he responded by saying to the correspondent at CNN that the victims were the border agents. The victim was ICE. Not the man that lost his life, not the man that was murdered, not the man that was killed, but ICE themselves. As a person of faith, I believe that every life carries dignity. As a civil rights leader, I believe that every system must answer when that dignity is violated. And as a resident of the city, I believe that Minneapolis is capable of more than silence and caution and being told to protest peacefully in moments like this. So I'm asking our city leadership plainly and publicly, where do you stand when your residents are afraid in their own neighborhoods? We have heard what the city cannot do. We have heard what is outside of their authority. What people are still wondering to hear is, what is this city willing to stand for? Minneapolis has moved before, Minneapolis has led before, and this moment is asking it to move again. We have a few people that are going to be speaking with us, and I'll introduce them throughout the press conference here today. But first, we have our executive director, Jaylani Hussein.
Jaylani I'm the executive director for the Council of American Islamic Relations Minnesota chapter. We are here again, nearly a week and a half. We were standing right here demanding justice for Renee Good. What we have seen and have learned from the murder of Renee Good is that the federal government lies. The federal government lied about the murder of Renee Good. They lied about everything related to the matter of the murder of Renee Good. What we have seen since the murder of Renee Good is that the federal government will refuse, and is at this moment refusing, to even investigate the murder of Renee Good. We have seen nearly a week after the murder of Renee Good, the shooting of Jose, who was also in North Minneapolis. And not even 10 days after that, they have killed and murdered Alex Preddy. What we have seen, even though all of us should have known, is that immediately after the murder of Alex Preddy, they once again lied about everything related to the murder of Alex Preddy. What we know at this moment is this attack, assault, this siege of our neighborhood by these federal agencies is nothing more than a political retribution against Minnesota, against our nation, and against many who did not vote for this president. This is an attack on our democracy, and it's an attack on the way of life. Our neighbors are waking up every single morning with the screams and the beeping of cars and people with whistles howling to their neighbors to stay inside, that they are outside. What we have noticed and have seen is that these untrained, unintelligent bandits that have attacked our streets are not de-escalating anything. If you remember and you see that video once again, you will notice that Alex was actually just helping a woman who was physically shoved to almost nearly hitting her head in the bumper of that car. And as he is there, they are literally attacking this woman, and the only thing that Alex is doing is trying to stop the attack of ICE agents to this vulnerable woman. That was what he was doing. And instead, they grabbed him, and because they are untrained, undisciplined bandits who also came here to murder people, because the president and the vice president have told them that they have immunity. And I'm going to come back to that. They began to not only target him, to violently beat him, and to violently kill him. They did not even know where they were shooting at. And we see now this country, and here in Minnesota, people are asking. And today we are formally making a demand. Not the federal government. Nope. We are making a clear demand to the governor of the state of Minnesota. We are making a clear demand to the BCA. We are making a clear demand to the Hennepin County. We're making a clear demand to the Minneapolis Police Department. We're making a clear demand to the Hennepin County Sheriff. Yeah. Your job. If ICE agents and the federal government are refusing to charge for murder, it is time for state leaderships to hold these ICE agents to the Minnesota Constitution. That is what we are demanding. We are demanding for swift justice. They are getting away with murder. That's exactly what is happening here today and what we are seeing. We are tired of elected officials telling us to stay calm when they are coming and hunting our neighbors. We will be calm when justice is served. Yes. Peace will come if justice is here. We are demanding justice. And we don't want to hear no more charades. We're investigating. No, charge them. There is enough to charge. There's enough video angle from every corner. There was a protester standing at every angle. We saw exactly what happened. We knew what Alex was doing. Yes. And yesterday I had a privilege of meeting some of the businesses who told me Alex was someone who deeply cared about his community. In fact, he was so deeply moved, he stood up every single day defending his neighbors. That is who Alex was. In fact, not only was he an ICU veteran at a VA, what Alex was doing was standing up for his people, standing up for his neighbors, standing up for every member of his community, and doing anything and similar to what Renee Good was doing. And he was murdered violently by this administration. And not only murdered, lied about what happened to him, lied about what was taking in place, lied about the fact that he was holding a gun. How the hell was he holding a gun? He was holding his phone and he was defending this poor woman. That is exactly what happened. So today we are asking for the federal officials who are saying to us that they're not going to investigate the murder of Renee Good, that they're not going to investigate the murder of Alex Preddy, that it's time for the state leadership to stand up and defend the residents of this great state. I also want to add, it is shameful for Minnesotans to know that in this moment, under this siege, that many Republican leaders are failing to even acknowledge the humanity of Alex Preddy. They're failing to even acknowledge untrained men killing people in broad daylight. Those who care about the Second Amendment refusing to acknowledge that the fact that Kash Patel said on national TV, you should not carry guns. This is a Republican Party that teaches us about the Second Amendment. But I guess for who? Second Amendment for who, apparently? In this moment, we are asking for justice. If it's not going to come from the federal government, it is time for it to come from the state officials and state agencies that are responsible. We are tired as a community. We are outside every single day defending our neighbors. There are a lot of Alexes in our neighborhoods. There are a lot of Renee Goods in our neighborhoods. And they are at watch in this moment as I'm speaking. They are standing up for their neighbors. And they're being gunned down by the senseless attack from this administration. It is time.
All right, folks, and as we go to break here, we'll just let you know, we'll get back to this address from folks in Minnesota in just a bit, but we are seeing some live images right now out of Minnesota. Just got these new aerials into our newsroom from our affiliate out there. Essentially, there's some sort of display that has been created over by Lake Nokomis, we're told. And it's essentially writing in lights, and I know it's difficult to see, but there are the words "ICE out." And as we mentioned, we did get word via NBC News, which is reporting tonight, that it does sound as though Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino, as well as several agents, the number still unknown at this point, do have plans to depart from Minneapolis after weeks of immigration enforcement operations with various federal agencies on the ground there. And of course, following this past weekend's deadly shooting of ICU nurse Alex Preddy. As we mentioned, we'll get back to this address and Q&A as well with reporters and folks at the University of Minnesota in just a couple of minutes. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back on the other side with updates for you. All right, folks, as we promised, we want to get back to this press conference, if you will, with students at the University of Minnesota as well as other community leadership. We've got folks we see now speaking out continuously against the ICE operations. As we mentioned, that just tonight we learned via NBC News that it does sound as though some agents might be departing from Minneapolis, Minnesota, including Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino. That's according to a White House official, and another administration official, the Trump administration, apparently familiar with the details of those departures. We want to get back to that address now with the reporters. Let's listen in.
Now, we're also asking in this moment, we're asking for people to continue to become constitutional observers. We're asking for people to continue to call their federal legislators. In fact, if you are not in Minnesota, everyone across this country, the one thing you can do today is call your senators and let them know to not support another dollar for ICE. We need in this moment to use every power that we have to speak up against this injustice that is taking place today. This injustice is horrible, it's problematic, and it's targeting our community right now. So we are asking for everyone across the country, that is your one ask, is to call your senators and let them know, do not fund ICE in this moment. And finally, to our beloved community in Minnesota, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being the best of this nation. Thank you for continuing to stand up in the most frigid temperatures. Thank you for showing up on the streets. And to the incredible neighbors who saw Alex unfortunately murdered, and to the many businesses on that corridor. I spent this entire weekend over there with those businesses who are giving out free food in the middle of their own trauma that they were dealing with. Thank you. We see you. We love you. And we will be stronger. Minnesota, this is a historical moment that we will tell our great-grandchildren. But the story we're going to tell is not a story of defeat, but a story of victory. We're going to tell our great-grandchildren there was a time when the federal government chose to ignore and attack our Constitution. And it was Minnesotans who braved the coldest temperatures to stand up against this administration. How ironic that ICE came to the place we make ICE every single day. But it is going to be the place where we end ICE, because we know how to deal with ICE, whether it is cold temperature water or those who try to usurp the Constitution of the United States of America. In this moment, Minnesota, we are on the clock. Do not retrieve. Do not go home. Stand with each other, with our neighbors. We will win. We are winning in this moment. Let's continue the fight. And for the state leadership, you're on the clock. I don't want to hear anything more about begging the freaking federal government to hold those officers accountable. And finally, we need the names of every single officer who murdered Alex Preddy. We need to know who they are. We need to know what they were doing there, and why did they shove that woman and kill Alex Preddy? That is the questions that we have as a public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jelani Hussein. We next have Michelle Rose, who's from the Communities United Against Police Brutality.
But if you come here to hurt someone, then you have no right to even ask for mercy or justice.
Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Gross. I'm the president of Communities United Against Police Brutality. MICHELLEGROSS. All of our hearts are deeply saddened and broken at what ICE has done in our community by killing yet another member of our community. Last night, our organization sent the following letter to A.G. Ellison, Drew Evans, the director of the BCA, and Mary Moriarty, the Hennepin County attorney. With due respect, is there any reason the ICE agents who have killed 2 of our community members have not been arrested? If any other people, including their victims, had engaged in this conduct, they would be in jail at least long enough to have a bail hearing, which would likely set conditions prohibiting them from leaving the state. It is obscene that the dangerous individuals involved are free to continue roaming our community or possibly absconding from the state. When I raised this exact question to Sheriff Witt, I got a vague reply about them being law enforcement. That answer is not good enough.
Nope.
Had Jonathan Ross been arrested, it would likely have served as a deterrent for other ICE agents to understand that they do not have some magical immunity for committing crimes and violating our state laws. Alex Petty may not have been killed. I appreciate their efforts to gather evidence, but in both cases there are abundant videos and witnesses to at least provide probable cause for an arrest. What's the holdup? While these ICE agents who have committed murder, who have killed our neighbors, are out roaming the streets or even possibly leaving the state, the FBI was busy arresting nonviolent, peaceful protesters who raised in the church the fact that one of their ministers is the regional director for ICE that is doing so much harm in our community. Those individuals had their door broken down at 3 in the morning, dragged out of their home, and then taken to court and placed in shackles while they were taken to the Sherburne County Jail. That's the treatment nonviolent, peaceful protesters who expose ICE get. But what is the treatment for agents who murder and shoot our neighbors? Nothing. This is outrageous. We are not standing for it. The murderers remain free, and that is unacceptable. Meanwhile, Pam Bondi sent a letter to our governor saying, we'll go away. No problem. Just give us your voter list. Violate your people's rights to privacy, and we will go away. That's a devil's deal, and we'll never go for it. That's unacceptable. And while that's going on, we are looking at whether or not ICE will continue to get funding. 7 members of the House Democrats switched sides to make sure that they did. Now the vote goes to the Senate, and they tell us, oh, we're not going to give them any more funding. Or maybe we'll give them more funding if they get body cameras and a little bit better training. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. We are not going to go along with this deal making that happens in the background so that they can all look good when election time comes, while our members of our community are getting gunned down and murdered by ICE. We're not having it. We urge people to reach out to the Senate, to your senator and every other senator, and tell them, do not vote for further funding.
That part.
At the same time, we demand our local law enforcement arrest these agents who were involved in these murderous conduct, start this investigation, and prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. There is no basis for saying that they cannot prosecute these agents for violation of state laws. There is very ample legal research that shows that they can, and in fact, it has happened in other states. We know it can happen, and they better get to it. We are in a hotbed right now. People are deeply fearful just to go about their daily lives. We need safety, we need it now, and we demand that the people who are responsible for ensuring our safety get off the dime and get it done. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Next, we have Marsha Howard from MFT.
Hello. I'm going to use my teacher voice. I'm Marsha Howard, and I'm going to be a little counterintuitive. People know me as an educator. I taught at RHS, Roosevelt High School, since 1998. And it did not shock me when I saw Greg Bovino assault my school in particular. Though now I am the president of Minneapolis Federation of Educators. It did not shock me when my neighborhood signal chat said there's a little lady with a big hat down the street at Phelps Park on my block that same day. That didn't shock me. That didn't shock me, because everything old is new again. When Derek Chauvin put his knee on the neck of George Floyd and smiled at my student, Darnella Frazier, while she was filming. Don't that remind you of Jonathan Ross saying F and B when he shot our community member? And y'all remember, on 6/3, remember that number? On June 3rd, they opened the square forcefully, and then they killed a former student of mine, Winston Boogie Smith, in Uptown to try to lure the radicals out of the square into Uptown to mess up Uptown, right? On 6/3, right? And it was a multi-jurisdictional task force, and nobody got blamed and nobody took credit, right? They shot him with his brand new girlfriend, who just happened to pick Stella's and happened to get out of the car when they shot up the car, right? And nobody got in trouble, and nobody got in trouble about it at all. 6/3. When did ICE come here and get on Lake Street and Bloomington, y'all? 2025. When was it? June 3rd, otherwise known as what? 6/3. History don't repeat, it rhymes, and I recognize the beat. Now, y'all got Alex Preddy, who's a VA nurse from my VA that I've been going to since I retired from the United States Marines. He had a phone and, just like me, an authorized weapon. We say at George Floyd Square, assumption number 2, assume everybody is armed, so it pays to be what? Patient and polite. I'm an American. I'll carry what I can carry as long as I'm legally able to carry it. Hashtag 2A. I wish you would. I wish you would. And he was unarmed when he was assaulted. And I said I was going to be counterintuitive because y'all are asking for him to be charged, the agent or agents that murdered this man, that shot a killing blow and then unloaded 9 additional rounds into this man's body. You're saying charge him. What, the BCA? The BCA investigate? MPD, who we saw the morning of troop in to preserve a crime scene and then dolefully troop right back out? The MPD, under the direction of Mayor Fry, who when in a debate with Omar Fattah, he was asked, Omar Fattah said that he would arrest ICE agents who committed flagrant, egregious crimes against citizens. And he only had one question. How? How? And his backer said he won the debate because he asked such a relevant question. How would we fight? I just command the MPD. They couldn't possibly do anything against federal agents. Big bank take little bank. Big bank take little bank. So now we are all victims of the Eye of Sauron from out east having now spied something that he wants. Minnesota. They hate us because they ain't us. They want our Great Lakes. We got all this water, y'all. They want our welfare state, and welfare got a dirty word. What that means is we take care of us. I'm sorry that the Lutherans are so nice and generous. I'm sorry they sponsored all the Southeast Asians after our secret war in Vietnam. We got the highest percentage of Hmong folk outside of Thailand, Vietnam, Laos. We got the highest percentage of Somali folk, shout out to Toronto though, outside of Somalia and Somaliland. The Karen folk are here. Black folk moved to this state from Chicago, Nebraska, Iowa, East St. Louis, and thrived. They hate us because we don't hate each other.
Say that. Come on.
And he thought this would be a proving ground. He thought that if he could do this operation, if he could break Minnesota, then he could replicate it in states across the nation. But what we are showing him every day is that we are better neighbors 3 weeks in than we were 3 weeks ago. We know each other better now than we knew each other then. We are showing them that we're unbreakable. Are we not? Even in the snow. Even in the snow. Even in the cold. Even in the cold. You ever heard of a Minnesota goodbye? It's gonna be a long time, don't you know? Folks are repping their Minnesota flag because we're banding together. And if the MPD ever wants to defy their strong mayor and actually act like they're worth their budget, they went, what, 9 million or 19 million over budget? I'm not sure. Then why don't they just vote with their feet and start acting like they worth something? Because I will still hold strong to this. There is no 5-year-old child in their underoos in their bed saying, I want to be a police officer, ever thought that he wanted to be a bad guy. They wanted to save their community. And now's the opportunity to do that. This would be a great opportunity to do that. They need to find and arrest and charge the people who killed the people of Minnesota. Yes. They need to do it, and they need to do it swiftly, because justice must be swift. It must be swift. We are not asking, we're demanding, because power concedes nothing without a demand, and we are demanding justice. We are demanding justice for Alex Preddy. We're demanding justice. We're demanding justice. We're demanding justice for all these stolen lives, for all the children that are afraid to go to school, for all the families that have to lean on their families to go get groceries and medicine. We're demanding justice for all Minnesotans right now who have to do soul searching as to what it means to be American. And for some of y'all who say, well, it's about time, then it's about time. This is the time. The time is now. We're Minnesota, and this is making us greater because we're sticking together. That's why they mad at us. We better. We greater. Minnesota.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
All right, and folks, we will get back to that address from various folks over at the University of Minnesota speaking to reporters regarding the ICE operations. We want to turn your attention right now to some brand new images into our Live Impact News studio coming to us from Phoenix, Arizona. You've been watching for the last several moments in what was our 3-box with some ground shots and some aerials. We've honed in on the aerials for now. We don't have a lot of information about the exact ICE activity, but our affiliate out there is reporting that there is ICE activity, and we have seen some agents in these shots. We have also seen large crowds of people who've kind of gathered around certain parts of the scene. Appears to be vehicles maybe in question, and they've been documenting. You can see actually they've got cell phones out, and they've been, I don't want to say verbally addressing, but they've been chanting certain things.
Can you guys hear
from
us
what
yet?
we've been able to gather by kind of listening into some of the audio at these agents who might be on scene.
Okay.
So we're going to keep an eye on this. We will get back to both this shot, and we'll get back to the feed from Minnesota
Can we get an
in
IFB
just
check?
a couple minutes.
Are you
So
sure
we'll be
one IFB?
right here on the other side of the break in 2. All right, welcome back here to Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. We've been keeping an eye on a live feed from our affiliate out in Phoenix, Arizona, where there is a large crowd that we could see is gathered around what appears to be some sort of ICE activity or ICE operation. We're still trying to get some more information from our news partners out there in Phoenix, but you can see that there are kind of a cluster of vehicles that are outside what appears to be a fitness center, and there are also just dozens and dozens of people gathered around these same cars. I feel like in the last several minutes or so we did see some agents, but we have not seen any in very, very recent moments. So I don't know if they're inside the vehicles, if they're elsewhere, but we presume that they're inside of the vehicles, mostly because from some of the ground shots, we see folks who are kind of gathered around these cars. They have their cell phones out, and they appear to be filming inside the vehicles. It looks like this reporter from our affiliate might be about to do a report, so we'll monitor that ground shot in the background. Sean, if you hear her, oh, okay, that shot froze. We'll go straight to the aerials then. But if we start to see the reporter on the ground back up and running with the feed, which once again you heard just froze for just a second, we'll try to get that to you. And as we get more information here, we'll definitely pass that along. Meantime, we will turn back to this feed that we've been watching out of Minnesota. Within the last few hours, we saw folks over at the University of Minnesota sharing what they say are their concerns with the ICE operations that have been happening in the Twin Cities area. And of course, tensions very high in those communities as we see this weekend shooting of ICU nurse Alex Preddy. Just this evening, we learned from NBC News that it sounds like Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino, as well as some agents, are set to withdraw from Minneapolis. And I'm being told right now by our producer here, Sean, that it looks like that reporter feed is back up and running in Phoenix. Do you know if she's about to speak? Can you tell?
I think she's about to speak.
Okay. I'm going to keep...
Looks like she's waiting to speak.
Okay. Let's go back to Phoenix then. Let's get some aerials. Once we start to see the reporter give her description of what's going on, we'll get to that ground shot. Just to kind of give folks who are not familiar with Live Impact News a little peek behind the curtain, we get these various feeds from around the globe, really. And some of these are coming from, news crews who are on the ground, gathering information, gathering video, doing interviews for newscasts that are happening in their market. We know Phoenix, Arizona is a few hours behind us here on the East Coast, as we're in Charlotte, North Carolina broadcasting. So they may very well have an evening newscast that this reporter is set to do a live report from. So she may be waiting for an anchor to address her before she starts speaking. So we're just going to kind of watch that shot, and we might jump in with her report just to hear what she has to say, because she's there on the ground and she probably has several more details than what we have here, just by watching the aerial shots and kind of waiting for our news partners to feed us some more information from what they're seeing. So all that to say is we appreciate you bearing with us here, and we are working to get you some more details about what we're seeing. But really in general, we've just seen tensions in various cities rising, particularly as what we've seen in Minneapolis has been unfolding. We've had protests even here in Charlotte, where it started following, the shooting death of Renee Good earlier this month by a federal agent. And we heard from folks at that time saying that they were in disagreement with the aggressive ICE operations and immigration enforcement that was happening in various cities, including more recently Minneapolis. And we've heard folks say that they are also in disagreement over how these shootings that have played out, the two that have now happened, 2 U.S. citizens who have died at this point this month at the hands of federal agents. We've heard a lot of protesters say they don't agree with how that's gone down, how some of the, following investigations have have proceeded since. And so we've seen demonstrations take place. We've got, from what we understand here, some sort of ICE activity we're looking live at right now in Phoenix, where we believe there might be some agents here on scene doing some sort of operation, and just throngs of people have gathered to document. And they've got their cell phones out. You know, we can tell that they're either taking pictures or taking video, as we've seen in so many cities where you've got some community members who feel like they disagree with these operations, feel like they want to bear witness to them. And we've even heard, you know, for example, here in Charlotte, when we had Border Patrol here last couple of months, you know, we were hearing from officials, including even, you know, from the governor, who was saying, you know, document what you see if you see any encounters, and if you feel like something is happening that is not legal, document that. We're going to get to the reporter. She is speaking right now there in Phoenix.
They have gas masks on. They have, I can see canisters of pepper spray. We're standing on just the other side of where Troy was, where these federal agents have been blocked in by protesters trying to leave here. We've heard them yelling at them, physically not letting them get in their cars at times and leave the situation. Some of the cars were able to get out, so all of the protesters are kind of now either, some of them approaching, it looks like, some are staying back. We're hearing less shouting right now as people kind of just take in this moment and see what's going on. Again, all of this happening in just the past minute or so. What I want to tell you about what we saw since we've gotten here is a very calm situation on the inside of Zips, as federal agents appear to be working inside. About a handful of them ended up walking out. Okay, now we can see these officers advancing towards the crowd here. I'm guessing they're trying to make sure that these federal agents can get out of the way without any trouble. You can see some people are trying to resist, backing up. Again, we can see them holding canisters of most likely pepper spray. But I would say there's at least 50 or so people here, maybe 100. So, very active situation right here as we kind of just take in what's happening, Mark and Kribe. I did not see anybody escorted out of the building. What we did see was federal agents walking out with boxes of paperwork. So there are two entrances. We've been on the front side, so it's unclear if anyone went out the back end, but I physically did not see anyone detained or arrested. Just to give you guys an idea, too, of this area, this is a shopping center. So we've seen and talked to people that are going to the gym that's here. There's cars that are trying to get in that are met by this situation here. And so just a lot of different people in this area right now. Okay. That was wild. You were standing right here when they all pulled up, and I could hear them saying to you, like, oh, he can't hear.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't hear a damn thing.
Because the sirens, they all pulled up right here and started getting out of their cars.
My IFB is super low.
Mine is too.
All right, folks, sorry about that. We understand that the reporter has concluded her report for, we presume it was for their regular newscast out in Phoenix, Arizona, but you heard the demonstrations being described here as maybe perhaps prompted by some sort of ICE activity where they were coming out of a business with some paperwork. That's kind of the gist that I received from that report just now. And throngs of people have now gathered, and you could see the agents that are there on scene. They've got gas masks on, and it is looking quite tense. Lots of folks out with their cell phones trying to document what's happening. And I'm unsure if they're going to take any further efforts to engage with the crowd, if you will. I'm going to see, Sean, do you mind listening to the audio just to see if things were, the language was getting a little, funny, so we're just kind of making sure that things are safe to take. Okay, let's go ahead and listen back in.
I'm like, please don't release any tear gas. Yeah, we have gas masks. Nolan has 2 in his car. Alexis has at least 1. But ask Philip before you go to any stuff because he has a whole bunch of them.
All right, folks. We are going to keep an eye on these shots. It is just about time to take a break here. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Like I said, we will monitor both this feed, and we've got an aerial shot from Phoenix, Arizona, and likely we'll return to these vantage points for you just as soon as we return from the break. Once again, 2 minutes. All right, thanks for sticking with us here on Live Impact. Immediately, we want to get back to Phoenix, Arizona, where we've been watching live feeds of ICE activity at a business. Within the last several minutes, saw big crowd of folks surrounding what appeared to be agents in vehicles. We're going to go to a report right now that's underway with a reporter on scene.
About 5 to 10 of them coming out of the front entrance carrying paperwork. That's when the crowd got riled up and started to confront them. We didn't see any violence, but they were getting in their faces, blocking their cars in with their own cars. At one point, we saw an agent really just reverse very quickly to be able to get out of this parking lot. And so that's, again, when they called in the backup, a lot of sirens. They came in with heavy riot gear, and they were able to get everyone out of here without using any tear gas or pepper spray from what we saw. Mark and Kribe. That's what I'm hearing as well from people who are out here with signs. I asked them if it was in response to the search warrants, and they said no, that there was a group protesting down the street when they heard about what was happening, and they all came down here. But then a lot of people ended up joining their group because this is a shopping center with a lot of different restaurants. There's a gym right here, so a lot of the people that we were talking to were on their way to the gym or leaving the gym when they came out and saw this situation, and they decided to either stop, join the protest. A lot of them were here simply just to document what was happening. A lot of people had their phones out recording the situation. But I want to point out that there is a backside to this zip. So from what we saw, there could have been more going on back there. But from what we saw out here, everything stayed peaceful until these protesters started blocking those cars. But now, as you can see, traffic is moving again. It looks like everyone is getting in their cars and going home for the night. Okay.
And folks, we can show you some aerial images too as that reporter is wrapping up her report. As you can see, the scene is more or less kind of dispersing following what was a large gathering of folks around some agents that were presumably there to do some sort of immigration enforcement. We were watching for several minutes as some of those vehicles that they were in, the agents, were kind of just like stuck there just outside of the business. But we just heard that reporter talking about how essentially they called for backup, and you saw the agents come out with this riot gear. They were wearing gas masks. Eventually the crowd dispersed, and those other agents that were stuck were able to get their vehicles out and leave the scene. So we'll monitor this shot, but it does look like it is starting to kind of thin out as far as the crowd goes. But it did look quite heated for a bit. Folks who had those signs that they were chanting, and we kept hearing them say, you know, shame on you, shame on you. They were definitely engaging verbally, if you will, with those agents on scene. With that, we actually kind of wanted to go back to, it's in keeping with, you know, the discussions over immigration enforcement, this press conference that we were seeing with students and also folks over at the University of Minnesota. And this was something that we kind of dipped out of in the middle of folks speaking to bring you those live images from Phoenix. So we want to get back to that right now. And we'll jump in, of course, if anything big and breaking happens.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ava, and I have a few words on behalf of IATA Leads. I am their civic engagement and advocacy manager. We are devastated by the killing of Alex Jeffrey Preddy, a community member. Another life lost, another family shattered, another wave of grief carried by a community that is already overwhelmed. We are tired of mourning. It is not just that our neighbors are asked to absorb loss after loss, week after week. It is not just that fear has replaced normalcy and that grief has become routine. Our communities deserve to live, breathe, to gather, to work, and to raise our children without the expectation of tragedy. We deserve safety without violence, accountability without bloodshed, and peace without more funerals. We are asking plainly and urgently for calm, for restraint, and for humanity. We are begging for peace, and enough is enough.
Right.
We cannot keep burying our community members. We cannot keep explaining loss to our children. We are begging for this cycle to stop. We are begging for peace, for life, and for the chance to live without fear. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You know, I was with Senator Omar Fateh at the unneeded memorial site yesterday, and he was speaking to constituents, and there was something that he kept saying that rings in my ear right now, which is, none of us here were alive in the 40s and 50s. At least the folks that are standing behind me, right? The question then is, if you were alive then, what would you have done? And what you have done would be how you're acting right now. There's no space for I want the peace, or there's no space for I'm going to stay out of it. Justice is being in it. Next, we have local civil rights leader and activist and organizer, Raj.
Not a civil rights leader yet. But talking about the civil rights leaders, though, 2 of them were arrested because they showed up in a church demanding that the church thinks critically about what it's teaching and what it is doing, right? And for that, Pam Bundy called for the arrest. And I'm saying that these are the kinds of violations that needs to stop. These type of calls for arrest of peaceful protesters need to stop. We are calling for Pam Bundy and the Border Patrol folks, as well as the FBI director, to be arrested if they show up in our city, because they are lying about what happened here. Right? And that lie is causing chaos and confusion here. And it's time for us to stop. The International Court gave a warrant for the arrest of Netanyahu after they reviewed the cases and decided that it was a genocide of what is happening to our Palestinian brothers and sisters and relatives. Likewise, we are asking for our county attorneys, as well as city attorneys, as well as city councils, as well as Keith Allison's office, to issue a warrant for arresting these people for the pure lie. They don't need any more investigation than what is the evidence is available, right? So we are asking for that. We are also asking for ICE agents who are causing child endangerment to be arrested. If I were to leave my child in a car for an hour or so, I will be arrested. I will be charged, right? We have those laws in Minnesota that says that child endangerment and child neglect is a violation of our laws. And yet, cases after cases where agents are removing parents without addressing the needs of our children, and our Department of Human Services and Health and Human Services and others are just simply throwing their hands up and saying, we don't know what to do. You will arrest me. I want the same thing applied to these agents who are neglecting, who are causing child endangerment in our community, to be arrested. Issue a warrant to be arrested. Whether that happens right away or not, at least I know that you are committed to upholding the law that you are going to uphold me for, right? So I'm asking for fairness and an equitable process to be in place. So city councils, members, please, you are the bosses of the police department. Ask your police department to arrest those officers or agents who are causing murder in our streets and stress in our streets and using abusive forces to tackle people who are peacefully showing up. Our police department can and should do this, and I'm asking all city council members, especially Minneapolis and St. Paul, to arrest them. Instead, our sheriff's department here shows up and attacks peaceful protesters. Right here, our sheriff's department in Hennepin County. What the hell is going on? Right? Why are we not holding the people who are causing the harm responsible? Instead, the people who are harmed are the ones who are further experiencing harm. The St. Paul Police Department showed up and attacked the community that showed up to help the community that is suffering as a result of ICE showing up there and defending ICE. They will say they didn't defend ICE, and yet the actions tells me that you're defending ICE. You have hurt and harmed our community that peacefully showed up, and yet the police chief and others are still receiving their paycheck and still walking around defending their position. It is time for City Council in St. Paul, City Council here, to issue the authority to our police department to arrest these folks, and for the Ramsey County and the Hennepin County commissioners to issue ordinance and give our sheriff's department the authority to arrest abusive practices. Stop arresting peaceful protesters. We are showing up to defend our community. We are not showing up to attack anyone. And yet our Ramsey County commissioners and Hennepin County commissioners are sitting around and not doing anything. So I'm calling on them to act. We need action, y'all, not rhetoric. Enough with your fucking rhetoric. Thank you.
All right, folks, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes to wrap up this press conference with folks at the University of Minnesota who are sharing their thoughts about the ICE operations underway in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Back in 2 with that information. All right, everyone, welcome back to Live Impact News. We've been hearing from some folks on the ground in Phoenix about that big crowd of folks we saw demonstrating and protesting around ICE activity. There's a witness who's speaking, and we want to jump in the middle of this interview because it's interesting just to hear like how everything started.
They took people, often they do that, they take people from the back door, so we're not able to witness any of that.
Any final messages that you want people to know?
Well, I think if anything, you know, the community came together to express their discontent with what is happening in our own backyard. We also what's been happening in other states, Chicago, Minnesota, the last few days, and now we're seeing it in our own backyard. And you know, I'm proud and happy that our community, they're standing up and they're, you know, with their voices, they're telling this administration that we're not okay with that.
Does it, you know, seeing what's happened in other states and seeing how volatile things have gotten, does it worry you that something like that is going to happen here?
It might. You know, hopefully we never get to see, and you know, what took place in LA or what's been happening in Minnesota, right? Where our own government executing, you know, innocent people. Hopefully we never get to see that. But, you know, I mean, we got an administration that is out of control, and they're not, you know, these agents, they're not following the law. Right? They're not, I mean, I don't need to repeat what everybody saw on social media on what happened on Minnesota.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate it. It was nice meeting you.
Real quick, can I have you say your name again?
Martin.
One more time.
All right, and our producer Sean was listening in while we were in the commercial break to this gentleman speaking. Did sound like there was some sort of operation that had happened at a business, and Sean was hearing the gentleman tell the reporter that I guess the agents made all the people inside the restaurant leave, like all of the customers, and they were keeping the employees inside. So as we learn more about this, we'll definitely pass that along. Meantime, you're looking at live aerial images of this shopping center where this did happen. We had, several moments back, live images, just in this very area where we saw these agents' vehicles that were parked right outside the building, and just dozens and dozens of people who had gathered around, kind of standing around the vehicles. They were filming on their phones. They were chanting, "Shame on you." And what we understand from the reporter on scene, who actually might be able to, she's about to do some sort of report, so I don't know. Sean, just let me know if she starts speaking. The agents actually had to call for backup. And so we saw all these other agents show up, and they were wearing riot gear. They had gas masks on. And eventually the crowd dispersed. We didn't see any sort of, violence or, formal, physical engagement, if you will, between the agents and the protesters. But we did see eventually the crowd kind of disappeared. The agents were able to get their vehicles out of the shopping center where they were parked, and they ended up leaving. So we'll keep an eye on that. It's possible the reporter who's been giving information will be able to speak, but we will maybe let's move over to Minnesota for a bit, and if she starts talking, we'll hop back over to Phoenix. All right, so heading back to Minnesota as we're hearing from folks there, talking about their concerns with ICE operations. About a few minutes left here in this chat with these speakers and reporters. Let's listen.
Jared Morey, Director of Civic Dialogue at the Minnesota Council of Churches.
First, I'd like to share a note of gratitude for every single person in the state of Minnesota right now who is doing anything to love their neighbors. Anybody who is doing anything to show care and compassion to the people around them and to keep our communities safe, we are so grateful for your efforts. I'm going to amplify a message released by our CEO, Elder Suzanne P. Kelly, on Sunday. Alex Preddy was killed by federal law enforcement officers who have occupied our state for weeks. That death came less than 24 hours after thousands of clergy, lay leaders, union members, and ordinary residents across the state came together for a day of prayer, fasting, peaceful protest, and a unified call for ICE to leave Minnesota. We gathered seeking peace, but we woke on Saturday to more bloodshed. We now await the results of what we expect from our state officials will be a full and as joint as possible investigation into the cause of Alex Preddy's death and persecution of those responsible. As facts are gathered, the impact is already clear. And we echo the words of Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara, who said, "This is not sustainable." He is right. Our neighbors and our neighborhoods are being traumatized. Families are afraid to leave their homes, to go to the doctor, to buy groceries. Parents are afraid to send their children to school. Fear has settled into the ordinary rhythms of life, and that is not how any community is called to live. We support the governor's request to the president to remove this force from Minnesota. This is not about politics, it is about human life, community safety, and moral responsibility. I am a Christian. I share that as a side note. Christians across the state on Sunday gathered in houses of worship. We lifted our voices to heaven, and we read from the scriptures. In the scriptures we find 2 Chronicles, if my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, will forgive their sin, and will heal their land. We pray for that healing. We pray for a city that feels surrounded, but we trust that God will be our refuge in the midst. Like Paul, many of us feel confined, but we do not feel abandoned. We feel pressed in body, yet free in spirit. We remember the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., that hate cannot drive out hate, and only love can do that. And I share, from my own perspective as the Director of Civic Dialogue at the Minnesota Council of Churches, one of the values that we hold dearest is that of empathy.
We'll get back to this in just a moment. Meantime, that reporter in Phoenix is giving an update on that ICE activity we were showing you earlier.
Gone home. I want to show you kind of what's going on right now. There's still police tape in front of the Zip Sports Grill. That's where we saw federal agents working inside this afternoon. And as that was happening, there was a protest of about 24, maybe 3 dozen people or so at the time, just recording, chanting things, waving signs. And then when those agents walked out through the front gates right here, that's when those protesters kind of surrounded them, tried to prevent them from getting into their cars, surrounded the cars, trying to keep them from leaving. At that point, it appeared they called in for backup, and we saw several more cars pull in with sirens on. Then agents in riot gear got out, kind of escorted those other agents who were stuck in their cars out of this parking lot, and that's when this group kind of started to disperse. As far as from what we could tell, we did not see any arrests or people being detained out this front entrance. We do know that there are several other ways to get in and out of this building, so it's unclear if any arrests happened here. We did see agents leaving with boxes of paperwork, so we're still working to get more information about what exactly this search warrant was related to and what they are investigating here, but as soon as we have those answers, we'll share that with you. Back to you guys.
And folks watching Live Impact, we're holding here just in case her anchor team back at the station is asking her a question, and she gives a few more details in just a bit. So we're holding tight to just see if she has any additional information.
Did they say we were clear?
Okay.
No.
All right. I think that her report has concluded. We'll get back to Minnesota to wrap up this press conference with folks who are speaking on ICE activity there.
Perspective of the other. And I say to all of those young men who find themselves new to our community on our streets, I echo the words of Ms. Howard, who shared that you did not think as a child when you wanted to grow up that you would be seen as a perpetrator. You did not imagine yourself committing this violence and bringing this chaos to a community. We don't imagine that for you either. There is a greater call on your life. You can still answer that call. You can repent, you can turn, you can do good in your home. And we beg you to do so. Right now, we pray for an investigation. We call for an investigation into the killing of Alex Preddy and Renee Good. And we support those who call for justice and peace and safety and freedom in our streets.
That concludes our press conference. We can answer some questions if you have.
All right, and we will take a quick break here. Back on the other side with the latest from White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, who we know did address some of the operations in Minnesota, including, we heard her essentially reiterate the Trump administration's agreeance and also good standing that they feel that Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has with the administration, even as we are starting to see some reshuffling, if you will, of some of the key actors in Minnesota, including Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino. We know that Tom Homan, the so-called border czar, is now going to Minnesota and is sent to be some sort of point person, if you will, on the ground there. And we're also hearing that there are some agents that are now set to withdraw from the Twin Cities area. So stay tuned, more from the White House in just a bit. We'll be back in 2. All right, welcome back, folks. We want to turn now to the White House briefing with Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, who we know has been addressing some of the response in Minnesota, if you will. And we talked about kind of like a reshuffling that we've learned about just this evening, where you've got Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino, who's set to withdraw from Minneapolis following this weekend shooting of ICU nurse Alex Preddy. Sounds like there was a call between the president and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, which both men said essentially more or less went very well. And agents, we don't know how many, are set to withdraw as well from Minnesota. Meantime, border czar Tom Homan expected to go on the ground there in Minnesota and essentially serve as some sort of point person. We know that was one of many topics we heard addressed by Caroline Leavitt. Let's listen in to hear the latest from the Trump administration.
Good afternoon, Jackie. Thank you for that. Thanks for coming in on a snow day for the rest of the government in the country. And as much of the country feels the impacts of that winter storm, President Trump continues to monitor the situation closely, and he has remained in constant contact with FEMA and emergency responders. President Trump also quickly approved 12 federal emergency disaster declarations within 24 hours for the states of Arkansas, Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia, enabling these states to access critical federal resources to supplement their response efforts if needed. These declarations will help state-led efforts of turning power back on, clearing roads for emergency services, and keeping communities safe. The White House will continue to correspond directly with governors and local officials in the coming days, especially in those states that were harshly impacted by this storm. I would also like to address the chaotic scenes in Minnesota over the weekend. Nobody in the White House, including President Trump, wants to see people getting hurt or killed in America's streets. This includes Renee Good, Alex Preddy, the brave men and women of federal law enforcement, and the many Americans who have been victimized at the hands of illegal alien criminals. Saturday's shooting remains under active investigation by Homeland Security Investigations and the FBI. The Customs and Border Protection is also conducting their own internal review. As President Trump said yesterday, the administration is reviewing everything with respect to the shooting, and we will let that investigation play out. But let's be clear about the circumstances which led to that moment on Saturday. This tragedy occurred as a result of a deliberate and hostile resistance by Democrat leaders in Minnesota. For weeks, Governor Walz and the Mayor Jacob Frey and other elected Democrats were spreading lies about federal law enforcement officers who are risking their lives daily to remove the worst criminal illegal aliens from our streets: murderers, rapists, pedophiles, human traffickers, and gang members. Governor Walz and Mayor Frey have shamefully blocked local and state police from cooperating with ICE, actively inhibiting efforts to arrest violent criminals. They have also used their platforms to encourage left-wing agitators to stalk, record, confront, and obstruct federal officers who are just trying to lawfully perform their duties, which has created dangerous situations threatening both these officers and the general public and Minnesotans alike. This is precisely what unfolded in Minneapolis on Saturday morning. Obstructing federal law enforcement and inciting violence against officers is wrong and illegal. This used to be a universally accepted position in the United States. Amid the hysteria, we must remember how we got here to this moment today and what this Democrat opposition is about. Former President Joe Biden and the Democrats opened America's borders for 4 years, inviting tens of millions of illegal aliens from all over the world to flood into our country. Among them, violent criminals who terrorized American communities and have inflicted devastating, permanent pain and harm on law-abiding Americans and their families. Yet we never saw outrage from Democrats or their allies in the liberal media over these horrifying crimes against U.S. citizens. The pain of American angel families was ignored and dismissed because it undermined the Democrat narrative. Innocent Americans like Jocelyn Nungray, Laken Riley, and Rachel Morin are just a few of the many victims savagely murdered by illegal alien criminals. Earlier this month, an illegal alien from Mexico with a long criminal history who came into our country under Joe Biden's administration threw a baseball-sized stone at a school bus carrying children in New Jersey and fractured the skull of an 8-year-old innocent child. President Trump promised accountability to these American families by securing the border, deporting every illegal alien who has committed crimes, especially and most importantly, violent crimes. Nearly 80 million Americans voted for him to deliver on that very promise, and he is. As the duly elected president, the president is fulfilling the will of the people by arresting and removing these threats from our country in cities from Los Angeles to New York and, yes, Minneapolis. Yet Democrat leaders in Minnesota with sanctuary city policies have actively defied federal immigration law and the will of the people. And as a result of that defiance, 2 Minnesotans have now tragically lost their lives on the streets of Tim Walz's state. It is President Trump's hope and wish and demand for the resistance and chaos to end today. That's why President Trump spoke with Governor Walz directly this morning, and he has outlined a clear and simple path to restoring law and order in Minnesota. Number 1, Governor Walz, Mayor Frey, and all Democrat leaders should turn over all criminal illegal aliens currently incarcerated in their prisons and jails to federal authorities, along with any illegal aliens with active warrants or known criminal histories for immediate deportation. Number 2, state and local law enforcement must agree to turn over all illegal aliens who are arrested by local police. And then thirdly, local police must assist federal law enforcement in apprehending and detaining illegal aliens who are wanted for crimes, especially violent crimes. If Governor Walz and Mayor Frey implement these common sense cooperative measures that I will add have already been implemented in nearly every single other state across the country, Customs and Border Patrol will not be needed to support ICE on the ground in Minnesota. ICE and local law enforcement can peacefully work work together, as they are effectively doing in so many other states and jurisdictions. Additionally, President Trump is calling on the United States Congress to immediately pass legislation ending sanctuary cities once and for all. American cities should be safe sanctuaries for law-abiding citizens only, not for dangerous illegal alien criminals who broke our nation's laws and do not belong here. We hope Governor Walz will do the right thing and continue to work with President Trump to keep the American people safe following their call this morning. Americans overwhelmingly want exactly what President Trump is delivering: strong borders and strict immigration enforcement against the worst illegal aliens, of which there are still hundreds of thousands to deport from the interior of our country. The most peaceful way to carry out this vital public safety mission is for Republicans and Democrats to do it together, and for state and local law enforcement to work together with federal law enforcement. We want to let cops be cops. You wouldn't know this continues to be a very popular policy position from the biased media coverage over the course of the last few days, but polling shows huge support for this exact thing President Trump is calling for. More than 80% of Americans favor deporting illegal aliens convicted of violent crimes. A country unable to deport criminals who enter it illegally is no country at all. The open borders agenda of Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, and the Democrats was already on the ballot on November 5th, 2024, and it was resoundingly rejected. President Trump will never back down from his promise to deport violent criminal illegal aliens and make America safe again, and he welcomes all cooperation in that effort. With that, I will answer your questions, and Jordan Conradson, why don't you kick us off today? Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Caroline. Jordan.
And we will get to the question and answer session shortly. We are going to take a quick break here on Live Impact. We'll be back in 2 as the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt takes questions from reporters following that briefing you heard, very much tailored towards what's happening in Minneapolis. All right, folks, following up here with the question and answer session with White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt and reporters following her briefing, which we just played for you a few moments ago, honed mostly around the big topic of national importance right now, which is that weekend shooting of ICU nurse Alex Preddy and a lot of the tensions that have been rising since. Let's go ahead and listen to the Q&A.
with respect to the shooting in Minneapolis. We're seeing massive outrage from mainstream media and the left, but I'm just wondering, where was that outrage when Ashley Babbitt, an Air Force veteran, was executed by Capitol Police Officer Michael Byrd, who she posed no threat to in the U.S. Capitol?
Well, you raised a very important point, which I also believed I just raised as well in those opening remarks, in that there has no doubt been selective outrage by the liberal biased media in picking and choosing victims and highlighting their stories. And as I've said, President Trump does not want any Americans to lose their lives in the streets of America and in American communities across the country. He believes what happened on Saturday is a tragedy, but every life is equal to President Trump, and that's why the lives of Laken Riley and Jocelyn Nungray continue to matter to him and be an utmost priority to him to this very day. And it's unfortunate that we did not see the same type of sensationalist media coverage over the tragic deaths of those innocent American women and girls across the country as we are in the wake of this tragedy that took place on Saturday. Gabe. Sure, go ahead, Jordan.
I want to get your response to this. The Arizona Attorney General, just days before this shooting in Minneapolis, she seemingly encouraged rioters to go out and shoot and kill ICE agents. And I'll quote her here. She said, "If you reasonably believe your life is in danger and you're in the house or in your car or on your property, you can defend yourself with lethal force." And she said that you can't tell if ICE agents are law enforcement or imposters, and it becomes an issue of whether you reasonably believed they were law enforcement. Do you have a response to that, and does the White House believe that she should be held accountable for these remarks?
Such dangerous rhetoric, as I pointed out, is exactly what has brought us to this position today, where you have elected Democrat officials across the country who are encouraging left-wing agitators and crazy people to go out and unlawfully obstruct lawful immigration enforcement. Again, these brave men and women of ICE and Border Patrol and the federal enforcement are just trying to do their jobs to enforce our nation's immigration laws and to go after the worst of the worst in this country. I would encourage everyone in this room, and I would encourage the Arizona Attorney General to look at the video of an ICE agent in Minneapolis. He was approached by left-wing agitators who were honking their horns and were screaming slurs at him, and he rolled down his window and he said, "What are you doing? I am out here trying to catch a child predator, somebody who has convicted crimes against an innocent child, and you are trying to obstruct me from doing my job." This rhetoric against ICE, comparing them to Nazi Gestapo, Donald Trump's police force, is despicable, it is shameful, and it is precisely what has led to the escalation of tensions in Minneapolis and in other places across the country. Gabe, go ahead.
Be looking to her for justifying violence?
I would defer you to the Department of Justice on that.
Thank you, Caroline.
Gabe.
Regarding Minnesota, on Saturday, the Department of Homeland Security posted that Preddy looks like he wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement. Stephen Miller on Saturday posted that, or called Preddy a would-be assassin. Why did administration officials jump to conclusions before an investigation had even been conducted?
Well, look, this has obviously been a very fluid and fast-moving situation throughout the weekend. As for President Trump, whom I speak for, he has said that he wants to let the investigation continue and let the facts lead in this case.
Well, with regards to the deployment of Tom Homan to Minneapolis, should the deployment of Mr. Homan to Minneapolis be seen as a sign that the president is dissatisfied with how the officials on the ground had handled the incident?
No. Mr. Homan is doing an exceptional job, and he has been working with Secretary Noem and President Trump over the course of the last year. Secretary Noem still has the utmost confidence and trust of the President of the United States, and she's continuing to oversee the entire Department of Homeland Security and all of the immigration enforcement that's taking place across the whole entire country. Of course, Secretary Noem is also in charge of FEMA, and we are in the wake of a brutal winter storm where hundreds of thousands of Americans have been impacted by that. So Borders Homan is in a unique position to drop everything and go to Minnesota to continue having these productive conversations with state and local officials, and I know that he's catching a plane in just a few hours to do just that at the request of the president. Jennifer.
On Saturday's shooting, has the president been briefed, and have you been briefed on specific details of the shooting? How many shots were fired? How many guns discharged? And I mean, did the protesters' gun go off or only the officers' guns? Do you have any of those details?
Again, the investigation is continuing, Jennifer, and we will let the facts lead and we will let the facts play out in this investigation. I do know that HSI and FBI are conducting interviews with those that were involved and the agents who were involved in this unfortunate tragedy on Saturday.
Are they keeping the president up to date on all those details?
The president is obviously very much on the ball with respect to this investigation. I think he's made that quite clear with the various statements that you've seen him put out, and also the 4 points that the president has outlined as well to Governor Walz, and to encourage him to cooperate with ICE and with the administration. Mary.
Thanks, Caroline. To follow on Gabe's question, Secretary Noem said Alex Preddy committed an act of domestic terrorism. Stephen Miller labeled Preddy a domestic terrorist. Does the president agree with them?
Look, as I've said, I have not heard the president characterize Mr. Preddy in that way. However, I have heard the president say he wants to let the facts and the investigation lead itself.
Was he alarmed to hear his top officials referring to him in that way, rushing to that judgment?
Danny, go ahead.
Thanks.
All right, folks, and our time here on Live Impact is coming to a close in just moments. We're going to turn you to our next hour of programming. Don't forget, we'll have the very latest for you coming up at 11 o'clock on the news right here on WCNC Plus. Take care and be safe.